a long time.
And then didn't get that.
Yeah, exactly. But Phil's been around a long time, and he's such a great resource, not just for me, but for the industry, because he knows everyone, and everyone give Phil a call on something, and he'll get back to you. Pat, he writes for you guys, right? Yep. So Phil said about 2 years ago, he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna be retiring," and I said, "Phil, I can't lose you." So where's Al? Al was jumped on as technical director here, and I said, "Well, I need an Al." So Phil, would you stay on as our technical director? And I'd love to have you stay on board. And he was like, "Yeah, let's make that happen."
So was Phil already connected to SAWDAC in another?
Yeah, he was a vote. Yeah, so he was a board member with VWD.
Okay.
And he was a board member when I came on, and then he went to GEM Windows in Toronto. And like I said, about a year and a half, 2 years, you get screwed up with all the COVID timelines. But it was about 2 years ago. He just said, "I'm gonna retire," and I said, "Well, we'd love to have you stay on." And he was gracious and said yes.
Yeah, Phil was installing windows in cave holes, right? In holes in the sides of caves.
I did
Phil,
not
are you
say
with
that
us
was
there?
Terry.
Are you online, Phil?
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Phil, if you could, can you maybe just give us a little bit of your sort of, history and how you ended up at SAWDAC and how that's working out for you?
Sure. I answered a classified ad for Canadian Thermo Windows in 1984, which is now Magic Windows, by the way. I was handed a double hung vinyl sample, your typical 20 by 30, and told, "Go out and sell it. We don't have time right at the moment to tell you anything about it." And I remember going to a place called Direct Aluminum, I think in Burlington, and a fellow named Ray Stewart was being visited by Wayne Hayes from another company. I knew nothing about Windows. I put it on a table, and I said, "Guys, am I in the right business or not?" And they educated me to say, "Wow, this is a great window, and this is this." And they told me, they gave me a lot of information. Shortly after that, back in the Canadian Thermo factory, a fellow from Schlegel at the time named Bob Prudhomme said, you look like you have half a brain. You should read this new thing called the A440. And I did, and I had a lot of questions. And I sent my questions up to the National Research Council. And a woman named Madeline Rousseau sent me about 6 inches of photocopied articles. And that was Window and Door University. People tell me, make nice statements like Jason made, but I don't really feel that I'm quite that knowledgeable, but I'm really good at knowing who to ask questions, whether or not it's Jeff Baker or Al now, or whether in the earlier days it was Elliot Cambest or Morgan Hanna, who was president of Canadian Window and Door. So I'm good at putting information forward. I actually was not at the original meeting at the Ideas Trade Show where dealers decided to form this SAWDAC, but I was approached immediately afterwards to join the board, and then they told me I was going to do the newsletter. So I've been actually on a SAWDAC board nonstop since about 1987. I actually, prior to Dave Mitten, had discussions about being the executive director, and I'm so glad that I didn't, because Dave Mitten was the perfect person to be executive director at the time and did a great job pulling everything together. The skill set is completely different. My job in much is what Jason was talking about. When the office gets a call from a homeowner who's upset about something or has questions, it comes to me. Sometimes they've just been told something by a dealer they don't understand or don't believe and need some clarifications. Sometimes they think they have a problem and don't. Homeowners can be a little bit paranoid as well, and sometimes they're right. And I often find myself in between a homeowner and a dealer, talking to both of them, trying to work things out. Jason mentioned homeowners saying that they didn't want a particular dealer coming back, and explaining to the homeowner why it was in their interest to have the dealer come back and why they would lose in court if they didn't. So getting involved on that technical side. I also can, help a dealer out who's looking at a specification. I've dealt with specifications for decades, and there's a lot of trick things that go into them that the people who write them put in there. And I can often help people out in sorting that out. So I get calls from SAWDAC members, sometimes with looking for a clarification on something technical that they're not quite sure about. And like Jason and you, Terry, I'm involved in a number of different government-related and industry-related meetings and situations.
Thanks, Phil. Worth his weight in gold, right?
Yes, maybe even platinum, right?
Yeah, maybe even platinum for sure. That's great. So you mentioned WindowWise already, obviously a big part of the SAWDAC world. Take us through WindowWise, for those of us that might not be really familiar with the program, how it's administered, what it does. Just give us the tour of WindowWise.
Yeah, so it's a complete waterfall. Like it starts right from the manufacturers. So under the WindowWise program, you have to be an approved WindowWise manufacturer, and some of you guys are out there. And then it goes into being a certified WindowWise dealer installer. So that's the first two key pieces. Where I'll say where the meat is on the bone, and that the manufacturers love it, is that we do audits on them. So when somebody's out doing an install, we'll have Mike Miskey. I'll just say Mike will go out and he'll go in when they're doing the install to find out if they're installing it properly at the time. So obviously nothing's being pulled apart. He'll go in and do the inspection, the audit, and then that gets taken back to the dealer. It doesn't go to the homeowner, and it comes back to our office so that we know. Let's say if Pat was doing the install and Pat wasn't putting the shims in the right spot, we'd go to Terry, the owner of whatever the company XYZ, and say, you got to talk to Pat about this. He's got to get this done right, because if not, then we'll remove you from the program. And there's a lot of value in behind the program, from a marketing standpoint, from a credibility standpoint, that the dealer just goes, well, okay, Pat, you got to start doing it right, or we don't have a job here anymore. And we've pulled it a couple times from guys that they didn't want to do it right. They've been doing it for 30 years, and so we pull that from them. Then they'll call back and say, just to let you know, Pat's no longer with us. Can we maybe get back on the program? So and then from there.
So the manufacturer of the product is WindowWise manufacturer. It may not be an installer. Am I reading that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, when you look at throughout the country, I'll say more in the Ontario base where it's the manufacturer and then dealer model, where you get more out west and in the East Coast, it's a little bit of manufacturer and install. So more so from that Vancouver area into the Ontario market, where there's less manufacturers and more dealers. So, yeah.
Okay. How do you qualify a manufacturer to be a WindowWise manufacturer? What's the criteria?
Obviously, we're using through work with Enercan with whatever they've put in to the system, make sure that all the drawings are signed off on whatever windows they're selling, that they are approved, and then through Energy Star, working with both of them, and then those sit in there.
Is a WindowWise install always an Energy Star window?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Are you getting any training uptake on the new construction side, or is it all renovation that you deal with?
All renovation.
Okay, so no new construction.
No new construction, no.
Okay. What's rental plan? I was reading that on your website, but I didn't go deep enough.
Yeah, so rental plan is our finance arm. So as I always say, people will try to, they'll save $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 for windows. So then they realize, well, maybe I can finance instead, because they'll work with the dealer and the dealer will go, it's $10,000 or it's $138 a month, pay it off anytime you want. And then someone goes, oh, I like that. And as I say to some dealers, they go, well, why would I want to finance? I said, well, you can go to Home Depot and finance $1,000 barbecue. People want finance. It's just happening out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know they can do it. And I said, if you just put on a quote that it's there, then you add value that, you give the consumer options. So when you give them options, you're bringing more to the table than maybe the next person. So, so a lot of dealers, depends on their model, but usually, if they bring on finance, they can increase their business by 20%. And usually when they finance, so they go to, let's say 8 windows in a house, then they finance it. Oh, Mrs. Smith goes, I can get that brand new red door that I want. Yep. And how about the soft? Yep. You can do that too. So now the ticket goes from $9,800 to, let's say, $13,500, and it's usually more profitable.
So is that something that the dealer would offer, and they help the client go through the process of
Yep.
getting that financing?
Yeah, and it's usually the two partners we use, Finance It and Simply Financial. They've got an app, and it basically takes 10 minutes if it's not, a $35,000 job. They go through really quick, add a little bit of driver's license, address, boom, 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 you're approved. And so what it does is, guys, you should be asking some of your top dealers if they're offering finance, because the biggest thing we find is that they get that, okay, it's $10,000, but if you can get financing, they're going to upgrade them on the windows. They're going to sell them better windows. So they can do that through the finance. So I go through your top 10 and just ask them, do you guys offer finance? If not, why? The one caveat, and maybe you can relate this for me for BC, in Ontario. So I got a guy in north of Toronto at Muskoka Window and Door. So I said to Joe up there, how come you guys don't offer financing? He goes, because everyone just pays cash up here. So the Ontario guys will get that. So anyways, that's about the only place that when I've said, hey, there's financing here, you can offer it, you can make more profit, you can make it easier for your customer, because they don't have to go into a bank. And then we also work with under rental plan is one we work with, as well as roofers, to offer the financing. So
yeah, in BC there actually is no cash left. We're all trying to pay for our houses and our fuel, and there's none left. So financing would be a great option out west.
Yep.
The reality is that associations like yours and ours, really, we can be competitors to some level, occasionally looking for the same member. How's that relationship working today? Has it changed since you started? And do you think, what are the opportunities to maybe share members, or, work with each other to maybe come up with other opportunities for, member categories, potentially, for example, a dealer member category for FenCan that would somehow work with SAWDAC to share some membership? That was quite a few questions.
Yeah. As an executive director, I have to, I report that back up into the board or something. But I've talked to Stefan about different things such as this. And I do have to, is Stefan even in here?
He's probably sleeping.
Yeah. I do want to say things changed for us about 3 years ago when Stefan came on, yourself, and then Mike. So I do want to say our relationship really came together, which I know, it's appreciated, because we're in the same ballpark, we're playing in the same playground, we're going to the government on the same calls, we're fighting the same fight. You guys are doing it more from the manufacturer side, and we're doing it from the dealer side. So yeah, there's some synergies there that we have, and that we have to go in as a one force, which I wish Stefan was here, because we do when we go on a lot of the Enercan calls, and I hear from my members, are like, what the hell? We don't need that program. Why did they push that through? And why are they even doing this? And I said, guys, we are pushing in the direction to help you. They are going in their own direction sometimes, most of the time. So I can tell you from our side, if you guys hear of a program coming out and you're not too sure on why the government brought it out or what they're thinking, as I said, I'll go back to, hi, I'm here to help. I'm from the government. Stefan and I have really pushed it. Terry's been on a lot of those calls as well. So I don't think they let Mike on because Mike would throw punch some guys. So, but otherwise, yeah, there's definitely synergies there. And I know, like I said, after the past 3 years, it's been a great working relationship.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely refreshing to be able to collaborate and like you say, row the same boat, play in the same park. I mean, I really see it as a great relationship, and I think it's only improving all the time. So that's great. We're really happy to see that. Most of the SAWDAC members are in Ontario and Quebec. That's probably a reasonably accurate statement.
Ontario, not so much Quebec.
Okay. Is that by design? Like,
well, so 5 years for me, yes. The last 2 years really haven't been able to travel and get out to see you guys. So previous to that, it was going back out, seeing everyone that is our members and in those areas, and then I try to do with like the Doppler effect. So if I have a dealer here, there's another guy over here, a street or two over, go and see somebody there. So I'm not trying to spread myself so thin, getting into those areas. So I mean, Alberta and Ontario are two biggest right now. Then you could say the East Coast, and then got to get out to BC.
BC.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously growth is in your vision and spread it, a little more across the country. Fair to say, right?
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Good. Maybe you could live on the West Coast. Then you might like that.
I'll move to the East Coast. Better golf courses, it seems like.
Yeah,
and as you just said, it's really expensive to live out there.
It's terrible.
So like many of us, I struggle with renovation rebate programs. My preference is obviously, that should maybe go to manufacturers to develop better products, but that's a topic for a different day. But I'd like to have you chime in on, green on, greener homes, government programs.
Green on's way behind us. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's forget about it, right? But just let's talk about renovation programs.
Yep.
Are they beneficial? Are they a problem? Like,
so
your views. I'd like to hear from Phil too on this one.
Yeah, so I like the programs for funding back to our industry. Just with you're going to use the greener homes rebate as in the example right now. And where's Cam? I just heard about the BC one. That's a doozy. But I just heard about that. So I don't really know too much about it, but I can go back to the Canada greener homes program. So, they're going to give up to $5,000 to the homeowner. And, I wrote about this, Pat, with you guys, and I sent out a survey on this. So some of the numbers, when I asked my dealers, and I had over 70 responses. Normally I usually get 20 or 30 on a survey. I had over 70 responses back. Did you know about the Canada Greener Homes? 92% said yes. Are you selling the Canada Greener Homes program? 60% said yes, 40% said no. So the guys that said no, I called and I asked them, I said, why aren't you selling that? Well, if I just go to sell them these windows, it's $12,000. But to be approved for the $5,000, I'm going up to the triples and I have to get to $18,000, $19,000. Then I say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but I can get you $5,000 back. And then they go, 19.5. So you want me to spend $2,000 more? No, I'm going to go over to XYZ that said they can do my windows for 12, because I go back to say people buy windows usually once, and I was that person. I'd have been like, I'm not spending $2,500 more, right? So they're not selling it because of that. They're afraid to lose the deal for $1,500, $2,500. So I go back and I told Rob and Ruth this at Enercan. Said, when we do something like this, give a little bit of money to the consumer, but give more money to the dealer, because the dealer is going to be able to sell it a lot easier. They're going to be able to massage the dollars and cents on it so that you're going to get the most efficient window that you guys want to see in a hole. Yeah. And these guys will be able to sell it. Right now, they can't sell it. We'll take that under advisement. Thank you. Right? So the way we see it is, I think if you get, and it goes back to dealer things, dealers are always saying, if you can just get somebody in my store, help me get somebody in my store, I can sell them. Majority of those, you guys work with all these guys. They can sell it once they get them in the store. So I think if we had a program where we can put some money into their pockets, yeah, like from and I can say this from our side, and when I hear from dealers, and Phil, I know you've added to this, is like manufacturers are just killing it with great windows. It's not the windows like that are the worry. The problem is the install, right? So that's where we come in. When it goes back,
Did we ask for an install qualification on greener homes?
Yes.
Did we get it?
No, we'll take that under advisement. So anyways, that's a real thought that from our side of the fence is like, hey, let's pay the dealers a little bit on this, or probably 60% of what you can, because they're going to sell the best window, and do it right.
Phil, I know you've been through rebate programs over the years.
I would love to jump in on this. Okay, the best rebate program all time in Canada goes back to the 1980s. And that's when the main glass being used was double glazed, no coatings. And Ontario Hydro offered $5 a square foot, which at the time was the cost of low E, for people to get low E. It became a no-brainer. All you had to do to get your rebate was produce the invoice showing that you got it. And when the program ended, everybody continued. By then, low E came down in price, and everybody continued to get low E. Terry, you said earlier about government using its money at the manufacturing level. I think the programs they've made with the best of intentions and administered by people who really know nothing about the window and door industry have not worked out particularly well or particularly efficiently. And I think that you're correct, and that incentivizing manufacturers and dealers financially at their end, so that by the time the price hits the homeowner, it is a competitive price. I do have to correct one thing. I hope Jason won't mind this, but it's kind of a clarification. Forgive me, Jason, but traditionally, WindowWise was always 100% Energy Star. But in the last time that Energy Star upped its requirements, WindowWise held back from that. And we advertised ourselves as something like Energy Star 2020 until Steve Hopwin asked us nicely to not even say that, but to just, and at which point we started to just promote the specific U-value and ER numbers that we were using. We would certainly love if we are an association that wants to see the best possible windows installed, but there are financial considerations, which gets back to the idea of incentivizing the manufacturers and possibly the dealers to be able to financially offer the best products. And there is a problem right now that there's a shortage of some of the things that would make the best windows, which is why we're joking about these long production times.
Yeah, it's not going away anytime soon. Phil, I'm actually going to stay with you for a second here. I'd like to get a bit of your insight on the consumer, today and yesterday and 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and the renovation market. Obviously you've seen lots of changes. Maybe give us just a little bit of history about what you've seen and where you think that reno market's headed.
Well, when I joined the industry in the 80s, there were dealers, really honest people. I know one dealer, I think he's retired by now, who used to tell me that he couldn't sleep at night if he had an unhappy homeowner. And there's a lot of dealers that is really how they feel. On the other hand, if you ever saw the Richard Dreyfuss film Tin Man, they moved out of siding in the States and Canada. Many of them moved into windows, and it was a real show of BS, basically. To try to be a flim-flam man in front of the homeowner. Doesn't work anymore. In many cases, the homeowner is more technically correct and knowledgeable because of what they find on the internet or find through SAWDAC, because they check with us sometimes, than some of the salespeople that are going out there. You cannot really go out there as an completely ignorant salesperson and just glad hand somebody, give the dog a bone and get a sale. You really have to know something about your products. And the fact that there are all these programs and that the homeowners might not know the details, but they know there's something out there, it really requires everybody to up their game. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great. I think you covered it well. So obviously, window-wise manufacturers are not all FenCan manufacturers are window-wise manufacturers. Give your pitch to our manufacturers on why. I mean, you've given a lot of good reasons already for what you do, but here's your 2 minutes to give your pitch to our manufacturers on why they should be in your program.
Well, thanks for that. When you think of, and Mike and I were just talking about this, think of a service call. What's minimum cost on a service call? $400. Time you put in your labor, cost of vehicle, driving out there, looking at something. You go $400. That's just for the initial to get out there. Never mind if they're there for 3, 4, 5 hours. With window-wise certified dealers that are installing the product, your product that you've taken, years to engineer and manufacture and put a lot of time and investment into it. If you have a window-wise certified installer, your service calls will drop 80 to 90%. So it's a huge reason. Like when you talk to our guys that are selling to window-wise certified dealers, they don't have to worry about them. And I can tell you this, guess who's getting the product first? The window-wise certified guys. They move up the ladder. I don't ask, they just get their stuff before the other guys do because they don't have to worry about it. So that's a huge piece. That's the key for them, that you guys aren't chasing. You never get finger pointing on it. And it's a great working relationship because they know once that product leaves their factory that it's going to be done right, and they're not going to hear about it. They're not going to see it on Google, right? Everyone hates that. Not going to see anything like that. And that's the key part, is that you're going to really, really reduce your service calls.
Phil, I'm going to come back to you for just a moment. I want you to talk to us about the window-wise training. Maybe a little bit about what is involved, and is there plans in the works to, I won't use the phrase improve, but are there changes in the works for what the training looks like and maybe how it'll be delivered?
Well, I'll start with that, but then throw it back to Jason. First of all, window-wise is basically an installation program. We have specific things that need to be done in an installation. One of the things that's really important is understanding that installers are not particularly educated like an engineer in building envelope and stuff like that. It's important that they know some basics. The training will include some basics about building envelope and why an installer has to pay attention to that. The main focus, though, is on the practical aspects of shimming, sealing, water barriers, air barriers, the things that an installer actually physically has to deal with. The window-wise method, which was developed by some of the best installers in our industry, was actually tested in the lab. A third-party consultant was hired to take it into a test lab and to see if it really was beneficial and if it really worked. So we've got a good method. The way the training, which is one day, is set up is it really is focused on communicating to an installer in a way that installers will understand. The goal is to take them away from the previous training program, which I call Tim Hortons University, which is where Joe is sitting around needing a job. Pete comes in and says, hey, George taught me everything he knows, and now I'm going to do the simple installations, and I need an assistant, and I'll teach you everything I know. The key is really in ways that are effective at communicating at an installation language, the things that an installer needs to do, the things that we often talk about in meetings, Terry. My wife was once listening to an A440 meeting where after the meeting was over, she said, my God, you guys talked for 45 minutes about shims and didn't make a decision. That's engineering. That's what we have to do to come up with, you remember that one? We have to come up with those sorts of things and get them down there. But the installer needs some very specific directions. And now let me throw it back to Jason, because I'm not directly involved with the training. And if he needs to clarify or correct me in any way, go for it.
And as well, can maybe, are there future plans for changes to what that training looks like? I know you've participated with FenCan's install exam program, et cetera, and the growth that we're going to see in that over the next little while. So changes coming to training, maybe?
We're always looking to modify it, and we with 3 of our trainers, I'll get together with them on a quick call. What changes you want to make? We'll tweak things. The core is the core, though. The one thing that I'm trying or maybe to look at doing is the online piece for remote. Like, I don't want to do online for Calgary and like Toronto and Halifax. No, if you are, let's say, sorry, Tamara, if you're in Thunder Bay and we can't get there, or we're in Kenora or we're in the Paw or something, we want to be able to offer that online, because it goes back to we're working with the First Nations Technical Committee right now to try to get them trained on installing Windows through WindowWise. But there's a lot of remoteness and remote communities that we want to be able to work with them so that they can do it properly and do it right, help and to help train them. So, we're trying to move forward with that. That's some of the changes that you'll see in it that way.
A number of years ago, it was actually David Mitten that came out to BC, and we looked at the program and had discussions with him. And I was at FenBC at the time. There can be some regional differences, in how products go in, building types, et cetera. Do you think that there will be a point where you'll be offering regional training programs that would be specific to those details?
So when the trainers go out, they usually already know those. So they already know going in. They'll know from municipality wise. They know those going in. The one thing I do want to mention though is, one of the changes that we've made, and I've added to it, is had the Tremco guys come in and go over like sealants and foams and just caulking it right. Because I can tell you this, we'll get a call at the office. My windows aren't installed right. We can come out, like, here's, we got to come out, and then they send me a picture of the caulking. The window was installed right. Somebody didn't know what the hell they were doing, and it's installed right. So, I think having like Scott and his team with Drew and Wade coming out and calling out east, they come in and they get in there and they talk about it and gives them tips and tricks, because it's a real key piece to finishing the mechanic. So that's something we added, and I know they're members of yours, so that's why I did want to give them a shout out as well. So
no problem. Okay, sort of my last point: future of SAWDAC and future of Jason Neal.
One and the same.
Yeah, let's keep the train rolling type of thing. No, we want to keep adding on with WindowWise. It's a key piece of our financing piece, helping people with that, but then just really advocating for our industry with government. That's, a lot of dealers don't see that in the background. But as you know, from being on calls and in emails back and forth, we're really advocating for the industry as a whole, not just the dealers, but, manufacturers, suppliers, installers, associations, in trying to push that at a national level, not a regional level. That's been key, because finally when we get on these calls, there's regionalization, and then it starts to muddy the waters a little bit, because they're like, We need this here. We need this here, but it needs to be a federal program. So that's the one thing that we try to push on our side.
Questions maybe for Jason? Oh, look at Patrick. I knew you'd jump right in.
Do we have people online? Yeah.
Here, I'll give you mine.
Questions for you, Terry, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Weird one for you. What would these rebate programs look like, in your opinion, just hypothetically, if you guys weren't in the ear of these government agencies, if you guys hadn't had that access and input to it?
Well, let me just go back real quick to this. One of the very first calls I get on with Greener Homes, and they're talking about having energy advisors. And I said, how about, this is great for Toronto and Vancouver. I said, how about all the remote communities where they really need the work? Like, how about just Yellowknife, Whitehorse? I said, why isn't somebody on the call with these guys up here? We'll take that under advisement. That's a good, that's what it was. Like, Stefan's texting me on the side. He goes, oh, you got them on that one. Like, that was a good one. So really, like, I don't think there would be maybe proper representation from those areas. Yeah, Ottawa, Toronto. Yeah, and but that's not, there's more than enough knowledge, manufacturing, logistics, everyth's there. So, we go back and it's 9 to 12 months for an energy advisor. We're going to hire 2,000 of them. And we were sort of like, how the hell are you going to train them, get them up to speed on HVAC, windows, insulation? What else do you want to add? Oh, geothermal. You're going to bring all these guys on and you're going to train them like this in 3 months? You're going to run out with 2,000? Yeah. Okay. We'll wait for it. Then all of a sudden, shitstorm hits the office. Everyone's calling, I can't get an energy advisor. I can't get an energy advisor. And especially like Northwest Territories, they have one energy advisor. He's booking 12 months out. So I said, I know what's going to happen, Rob. You guys are going to fly 100 energy advisors up from Toronto or wherever. You're going to burn the carbon footprint that you're just trying to get rid of. And we're going to pay 3x to have them up there. So why don't you just make them window-wise? They're doing it window-wise. They're doing it right under your rules. So how would it look? I don't know if it'd be much different because they just do whatever they want. It seems like they'll tweak things. I shouldn't say that. They'll tweak things, Pat. They'll listen to us and they'll tweak things. But usually when it's a core item, they're not tweaking it. But the smaller things, yeah, they'll listen to and drive. Like when we first got on there, when I told them, I said, guys, there's no glass plants. And they're like, what? Like, yeah, they didn't know that. So like they just thought, oh yeah, just call 1-800-GLASS and call 1-800-extrusion and you guys put it together in 4 weeks, right? Guys, I told them, I said, our dealers are, and that was when I was at the craziest time. I was like 20 to 22 weeks, maybe 24. And I'm like, we don't need this right now. So it goes, yeah, I don't know how much they would change.
Yeah, I don't think we would have seen much difference. When they were first pitching the program and we were involved in some of those discussions, we tried to make it abundantly clear that installation is a critical component to a performance window. Probably more critical than an EA doing a model on your house and telling you to buy triple glazed windows that you need to buy anyway to get into the program. There was, they just didn't want to listen. We'll take it in advisement. So I don't think it would be much different than what we see today.
One more comment.
Follow up.
Follow up. Sorry, follow up. I guess the only thing maybe where I saw some good effect from association, I don't know if I call it lobbying, but at least input, was in the the initial stages of that market transformation initiative at NRCan, they were taking a much harder line on a lot of things, and I thought that softened in iterations of the roadmap as it came out, and in some of their goals and stuff as it went along. I don't know if you agree, but I thought it looked like they had listened a little bit.
Well, I certainly agree that that was effective, and props to Al. He really drove home the reality of where we are in our product availability and the realistic options that are out there. So that may have helped a bit, but it might have been half a point or something like that difference. I don't think it would have made a big difference. Any other ones, Mike?
So you mentioned that SAWDAC's position is to be kind of in between the homeowner, the dealer, the manufacturer of WindowWise program. Is SAWDAC concerned about any legal or has had any legal ramification from being that kind of, I want to say professional, maybe I would say professional expert, but is SAWDAC scared by taking a position one way or the other that they can open themselves up to liability in court cases?
No, we've never been worried about it, because usually when somebody calls and says it's not properly installed, we have, it's on site visit and it's not properly installed. They can take it to court and here you go. We've got, let's say like David Mitten, he'll go out and be like, oh, I've did this for 30 years. This is not installed right. You can take that to court on that side. I'll give you a good, for instance, Windy Woods down in London. They used your windows, 10-story building, right? They installed, one of my dealers installed the windows properly, but they were having issues with condensation and this and that. So we go down, we get the windows, and first thing they said was, no, we don't want the Energy Star window. We would just give us the cheapest one. And we're like, well, what do you expect? Like they had a board, it was a nonprofit board for a building, and they had 6 people make a decision, and not one of them have probably ever picked up a screwdriver. So we wrote the report, put it on to them, and it was like a $500,000 claim. This is it. You guys, was your decision. It's installed properly. So yeah, we take that kind of stuff on.
Question here.
Greg?
Jason, with your expansion plans, we know each region has its own quirks, and it even goes down that dealer and install network. And you talked about the major retail chains, but you'll see kind of packets of those retail chains throughout, Canada. Do you see your model modifying a bit, where if you're looking at potentially a retail dealer that doesn't offer install, but they have a contractor network, is there a program or is a modification of the program that would work for WindowWise with that?
Yeah, so we have some of our WindowWise guys. I know, I can speak for Ontario, but not like with Kent. But I can speak for like with some of the guys there. Lowe's has really jumped in with training. Home Depot hasn't, and Lowe's is also, they're also hiring our WindowWise guys to do installs for them because they see the value in it. So I can't really talk to Kent out here, or if anyone else you're thinking of. It hasn't been really a mandate. It's in the back of our head, and we sort of follow it and watch it. Some of the dealers look at it and go, well, if I'm doing this and I'm still doing WindowWise, I don't really have to market. They're doing the marketing for me. Some people want to do it. Some don't want to do it. Those are volume jobs. So some aren't afraid to be tied to it, dealers. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's not a mandate of ours to grow big box at all. Our mandate is the dealer model, dealer channel renovations, not into new construction, just under renovation, manufactured dealer model.
Anybody else?
Follow up here. Hold
A
on.
follow up? All right.
Well, while I have the two of you on stage, and obviously we've walked the path as FenCan with the FIT installation program. Got a successful program here, the WindowWise program. Obviously a lot of similarities there, a lot of synergies. Probably stating the obvious, but I'd like to get your opinion on would we ever see an integration with the two programs?
Listen, I've always said like we could team up somehow. I said we already have a program in place. But I did tell Stefan this is that the oversight of the WindowWise program. So once you just train somebody under certificate, they're gone. You can hopefully they've did it right. We have a lot of time and resource in behind doing, and I remember you and I talked about this 3-4 years ago, is having the meat on the bone to say, listen, we did the inspection. This is it here. Sorry, Pat. Pat's not doing it right again. So you can put that in my article. So that's really, there's a lot of time and effort and resource and follow up that has to go into the policing of it. So I think that's one of the key pieces that really differentiates us from maybe, but who knows, maybe we can look at it.
Yeah, I think that there is opportunities, and we've already grabbed onto some of those opportunities. SAWDAC WindowWise being a training partner with our program, with our FIT program. I think the key difference, though, that we'll never see them be completely joined as partners is that we will be focusing a lot on new construction. Whereas, their program obviously is renovation. We're going to be looking at new construction under the building code, A4 40.4, or wherever that ends up. So I think that alone will not allow us to just be absolute partners. But as far as continuing to work together on training programs and training knowledge, absolutely, I see that continuing, long down the road. Mike?
Thank you. It was going to be to my next point. You've mentioned it a couple of times. We don't do new construction. Seeing that you have such a successful program with WindowWise, and obviously NRCan feels value in talking to you about programs, why hasn't new construction ever come up? Like, is it something that SAWDAC strategically stayed out of it? Has the NRCan or federal government or whatever body would take care of that? Say, new construction is not a worry, because you're going into those houses 8 to 12 years later to change them and install them properly.
5 to 7, maybe.
Okay, well, but
maybe the manufacturers out here want that 5 to 7.
Yeah. So, but why? So is it SAWDAC's position? Has SAWDAC ever been approached, not from FenCan side or any other association side, but from the government side? Why haven't they been approached to ensure that new construction windows are installed with the same care, or and not tacked in, but installed, right? So
it's a great question. We have thrown that out there at them. It's not even, we'll take it under advisement. They're they didn't even know we had a glass plant in Canada. Like, once Steve Hopwood's gone and there's 4 people doing his job, it's a bit of a problem for our industry for them to get up to speed on it. So new construction, it's always just been not a policy, but a mandate of ours to work with the dealers that are doing renovations. Not that me personally wouldn't mind taking it to my board saying, hey, how do we do this? But at the same time, now there's a lot more policing going on, a lot more, because there's so much pressure on timelines to get new houses done. And like you said, they tack in 4 screws and say, see you later. So for policing that, it takes a lot more.
If I could make a comment.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Problem with new construction, which we would all like to see better, is how do you get access to most of the people who are, as someone said, nailing in windows, and train them properly? How do you inspect it? How do you make sure that they're actually doing it? And how do you get them paid enough so that they are willing to do it correctly?
Yes, valid point for sure.
They're union,
and
they're unionized. So,
but I certainly can't speak for what SAWDAC is doing or what your plans would be. But I think dealing with renovation is such a different animal than dealing with buildings that are under a permitted building code. and a lot of other challenges can come into play there. So if your, if your business model today works well, do you really want to upset that and dive into the code of, or the world of building codes? And, I don't know. I'm not sure I would jump in there too quickly. Anybody else? Mara?
Thank you. I can just say, as a dealer installer for up in Thunder Bay area, so when I started in the business, we started out as inspecting other installers, and we were hired by a major manufacturer to go out and inspect their job. And when I went out, I was like, I'm not going to lie for you, I'm not going to lie for the installer, and I'm not going to lie for the homeowner. It's going to be a true report of what I'm seeing. And through that, we've developed a business model that is very successful, and we still continue to do that for major manufacturers, where we do go out and we do inspect it, and whether it's new construction or retrofit, either which way. So our installers go out, they do the job properly under the modeled through retrofit installation. And just for an example, we have a house right now that we're doing an inspection on. The walls are actually caving in on a new construction. And we have, are going there with ply gem and looking at the windows that are there. And it's like, we're sitting there and it's like, how the HE double hockey sticks do we even look at any of this? Because it's like such lackadaisical. So how do we mandate this? How do we fix the issues? We're having unhealthy homes causing healthy people. And throughout the years, this is just something that continues on and happens. And we're seeing this more and more. So I'm not sure what an answer is to it, other than to start digging in our heels. And with my 6-inch stilettos, I do that with my company. And we don't have this issue very much at all, except when it comes down to somebody's come along and they've removed stuff that we've already put in because they wanted to change something, move it to something else. And then all of a sudden they're coming back at us and saying, oh, but you did it wrong. No, honey, we didn't. You took that window out of the hole and you moved it someplace else. So your install is the issue, not the manufacturer, not our install. Take ownership. But as a company, as a dealer, as an installer, as a manufacturer, you need to take ownership of your own problems and recognize and realize and step up to the plate and change those problems and fix them. Don't push the buck. Don't throw it out at somebody else's problem. Ownership is what is key, and that is something that we really have to recognize and start doing.
Yes. Amen. Lothar, did you have a question?
Hi. Hello?
Yep.
The real question is for the homeowner. If he is a window-wise customer, who is paying his damage if the installer used 60 pounds of caulking in the window and he comes back to you and say, who pays for it? He can sue. The suing costs $20,000 for a $4,000 window.
Yeah, I've never run across anyone without it, because under WindowWise, there's minimum of 2,000 hours before they can be WindowWise certified. So yeah, I've never run across anything like that. But we do cover. Let's say if XYZ company goes out of business, something does happen, we will cover that. But never had anything come across like that.
I want to just add to that, because it's a point that I didn't really consider clearly. WindowWise is not a warranty program, but let's assume for a minute that a WindowWise certified installer does not do the best job, and there's a problem with that product. Is there any,
With the product or the install?
sorry, with the install, is there any sort of support from SAWDAC WindowWise to that homeowner if there's
Yeah, like,
damage?
yeah, for sure. First of all, we'll be on site to take a look at it first. But I can go back to it. We've never had that problem, but it's a good, it's a good hypothetical, but with because we are doing those audits all the time.
Yeah.
So, and we call like that morning and say, hey, where's Terry working today? But hypothetical, we will take care of it. Yes. But we always give XYZ the opportunity. Do you want to fix it? Because Pat's no longer with your company. I know, and he did the job. Yeah. So, man, I'm getting a beating here. Are you going to ask a question or throw that at me?
I throw something in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Phil, go ahead.
SAWDAC maintains actually a cash reserve under the possibility that we have a valid warranty claim and the dealer is no longer there to rectify the installation. Maybe once or twice in my memory, going back to the beginning of WindowWise, that I can think of where any cash actually came out of that.
2019, we spent a little bit more probably than Phil. That was coming out of Green Ontario, and everyone was forced to be WindowWise through the government, even though we said, this person's bad, that person's bad, do not take them on. And they said, this is an inclusive program, not an exclusive program. So
Under advisement. Thanks, Phil. That was the answer I think we were looking for, is that, should there be a problem, was there, a way for SAWDAC to support the homeowner. So that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Well, I think we're out of time. Patrick, one more. Sorry.
I just wanted to know more about the audit process and what's involved with that, and what you guys look at, and how onerous is it? Because I know a lot of dealers are scared.
Yeah, they do. The good ones. Now here's the good dealers. So they love having the audit because it's a one page, tick the box, little couple of comments, person's name. They give it back. So Terry's the owner. Here you go. Pat was out there today. Did a great job. Take a look. So now some sales guys, they'll grab those audits when they go sit down beside Mr. and Mrs. Smith. By the way, we're WindowWise. We get audited. Here's some of the audits that we've did. And oh, by the way, Terry and Pat are going to be doing your install. Here's a couple of their audits. So right away, the sales guys go, this is great. I go in, I show them, they see Terry and Pat are right here to do it. So they're not really onerous. And those audit reports do not go back to the homeowner, only to the dealer. So I know sometimes they get worried about that, but it's like, no, it only goes back to you. So.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I just want to contribute that in our marketplace, I mean, we're all Atlantic Canada, but in Newfoundland, everyone is building boats and everybody can do everything, and everyone has to put a grin on everybody's face. But we have challenges on the renovation, but we have big challenges on new home construction, even though it's relatively small to new home construction in other markets. But when new home construction is done, there's so many people involved in the installation of the window. The framer tacks the window in. Then the guy comes along inside and puts the shims in. Then the other guy comes along and puts the low expansion or not low expansion foam in. Then someone else trims it in, and then someone else checks it because the trim is not in line. They realize the window's not square and the operators don't work. I'm not trying to be silly about it.
No, but that's new construction for you. That's why that's why it's been a real piece of our mandate, is like, because there's so many people touching it. Well, who touched that? Was that the trim guy that knocked it out because he couldn't cut it square? So like, what happened?
So we've gone on service calls to large doors that the dealer wants us. We sell through dealer market, so you guys know we don't install. So we go to a job site with our technician and say, let's see what's wrong with that door. And the guys turn around, and the siding guys there, he takes off the siding, and someone yells, run, because there's not even a nail or a screw or a shim. And this is a true story. So this is what we're dealing with. But I'm a big promoter of installation and of information that the consumer themselves at the bottom end of the totem pole of knowledge is comfortable with. And working with people like SAWDAC and FenCan, I'm hoping that we'll resolve it to the point where we can give them the basics and build from the bottom up. Instead of start with all the technical information that some of us, I'm not including myself in there, but I'm trying so hard to try to understand. And still I'm going out in the marketplace teaching or educating dealers that they can pass along the information on installation and new and renovation construction to the consumer. It's a real snakes and ladders thing, for lack of better terminology. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don. Last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Real quick, we're gonna everyone just sort of stand up for just stand up. So I want to give you a quick story, and you can take this back to your own workers, installers, and such. So we all get to go to these trainings and in leadership conferences. So I've been to a million of them, and I was like, oh, I got to go to another one. Okay, but it's Niagara on the Lake. We get to golf. So okay, let's go. So, but then I read who was going to be on the dais. There was 2 Army Rangers, U.S. Army Rangers on the dais, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. So get up there, and right away the Army Ranger says, now I want you guys to think of this. Who here can tie their own shoes? Shoelaces, come on, arms up, right? Who's been doing it? Who's been doing it for over 15 years? Who's been doing it for over 20 years? 25, 30, right? Okay, we get the point. So now he says to somebody, I want you to take your shoes off, up one shoe off up here, and I want you to show me how you tie your shoes. So you grab them across, you do the loop, and you go over and under, right? And pull it. 2 loops, right? He says, how long have you been tying your shoes for? 5+ years. Okay, say if I told you you've been doing it wrong for 55 years. Come on, it's just tying shoes. It's easy. He goes, first thing they teach you at Ranger School is how to tie your boots. You've been doing it wrong for 55 years, son. So you don't go under, you go back over, pull tight. It'll always stay flat. It'll never come undone. So now at camp, you're going to listen to everything I say, and you're going to do what I say now that you know how to tie your shoes right. So when you go back to your offices, just think of installation differently. Think of like window-wise differently. Think of how you guys do your own processes differently. Think of us doing something different up here. It's just one little thing, and it changes it, because underneath or over the top. Do it over the top. You tie your shoes right all the time.
Phil, thanks for joining us today. We're sorry you couldn't be with us. Hope you're doing well, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks
Thank you.
for the session, guys. Thank you very
Jason,
much.
thank you. Thanks a bunch, folks.
Appreciate your time, man. That was really good. Really good.